Welcome. I want to thank you for watching this video. Let's begin by looking at another of our areas of disagreement. At the moment, it appears that there are three schools of thought that are being considered when people discuss, on the one hand, whether the world was created 6,000 years ago in 6 days by God, or on the other hand, whether it happened over millions or perhaps billions of years as a natural process not involving God or anyone else. There is also a third school of thought that has been discussed from time to time, and it is that which is called intelligent design. There are many in the Christian community who, in their love for God and in their zeal to serve Him, have taken the approach which says that the Bible teaches us that the world was created by God 6,000 years ago. They believe very strongly that every word in the Bible must be accepted as being taken literally. Their timing for the creation of the world is contrary to every scientific consideration based on existing scientific knowledge and understanding, which is considerable. I can truly understand, however, the reasons why it is that those who have that understanding feel the way that they do. In addition, they have often been put by their clergy and others in the position where they feel that somehow, if they don't subscribe to this way of thinking, then they don't have the level of faith within themselves that is required in order to be found acceptable in the eyes of God. I would like, however, to respectfully offer some thoughts for their consideration. Many of us remember from our high school history lessons that there was a time when the church held such influence that they could have anyone who did not agree with their understanding of the world declared to be a heretic and put to death. Despite scientific discoveries which brought knowledge to the contrary, there was a time when the church still clung to the belief that the sun and the rest of our solar system and the universe revolved around the earth. That church doctrine persisted for a great many years. It continued far too long, even after scientific evidence to the contrary had begun to be accepted throughout the so-called civilized world. We must therefore go back to the Bible and examine it carefully in order to make the following point. The Bible, throughout its teachings, uses symbolism, parables, and allegory extensively. These methods of teaching are very obvious in the book of Daniel and in the book of Revelation. Those who take the Bible literally readily agree to that fact. Nevertheless, they find it difficult, if not impossible, to believe that such symbolism, parables, and allegory could play a significant part in the teachings contained in the rest of the Bible also. They insist that it must be accepted literally. Shouldn't we consider the strong possibility that God has written these words for us in His own ways, for His own purposes, as well as for our instruction? Jesus often spoke in parables in order to teach those listening certain important lessons. Is it so hard to believe that God may also do the same? We must open our minds and hearts to His intent and His purposes, as well as to His literal words. I would never suggest that those who have the belief that every word of the Bible should be taken literally be prevented from believing whatever they wish to believe. I do object very strongly, however, when, as a group, they come together and insist to lawmakers that their beliefs should be made a part of the teachings in the public school system. Once again, it would appear that you have the members of the church wanting the government, in this case the public school, to do their jobs for them. Excuse me. The public schools were not created to teach religious beliefs and must never be used for that purpose. The teaching of religious beliefs belongs in the home and in the church, or synagogue, or mosque, or temple. And those who seek to place those teachings in the public schools appear to be saying that they can't or won't be able to perform these religious teachings on their own. The same is true of prayer. Prayer belongs in the quietness of our heart, not as a public display in the public schools. If you're a person who follows the Judeo-Christian Bible, isn't that what your Bible teaches you about prayer and praying? You know that it does. Looking at another aspect of such matters of faith, the world of science, as it exists in our society today, has a very structured set of criteria which determines what is accepted as true and provable scientific knowledge. When a certain area of research reaches the point that the knowledge is so dependable that it can be relied upon, then that area of knowledge is deemed ready to be added to the textbooks for teaching in our public schools. One should not fault science simply because its level of knowledge exists only to a certain point of understanding. As scientific knowledge continues to grow in the years and decades ahead, they will move closer and closer to the knowledge that science and the manifestations of God on the physical plane and in other places may be no more than two sides of the very same coin. Perhaps it's even true that both sides of that coin are one and the same. I happen to believe that such things are possible, but I also believe that acceptance of such things as this scientific, as being scientific truth, will not happen until humankind achieves significant growth in love, compassion, tolerance, peace, and understanding. Such knowledge is revealed to humankind only when we are ready, and I see no signs of such readiness in the world at large today. Nevertheless, let us teach the children in our public schools that which we know to be true today, and that which can be readily proven by scientific methods. Even that carries with it no guarantee of infallibility, because new knowledge is making old knowledge obsolete every day in different areas of science. However, today's knowledge is what we have available to teach, and it should be used in the education of our children in the public school system. That in no way prevents families, churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, or private schools from teaching their beliefs as they will. But those beliefs do not belong as part of the curriculum or extracurricular activities of the public school system. Nor should the cost of such personalized schooling be paid for or subsidized by public tax funds. Our public schools teach children from many different family backgrounds, and these backgrounds include the family religious beliefs. I cannot overstate the importance of the fact that the teaching of religious beliefs does not belong in the public schools unless the teachings are part of a specific class designated as being for the purpose of impartially and historically or comparatively teaching the world's major religions. Teach your children the religious beliefs that you want them to have, and teach those beliefs in your home and in the church, private school, synagogue, mosque, or temple of your choice. There is, as mentioned earlier, a third religious belief about the creation of the world and the universe that has been given the name intelligent design. This belief teaches that the world as it exists could not have come about by happenstance, that the creatures on it did not evolve by happenstance, and that therefore there must be some design that was followed by a higher intelligence in the creation and evolution of the world, perhaps even the universe and its creatures. It's not meant to say that we are not creatures of free will or agents of free will. We have free will. But guidelines and paths can be laid down to follow that. It's easy to understand why this has been ridiculed by a great many scientists and others of scientific bent. They must, because of their training, insist on being able to use the five senses or other means, such as mathematics, etc., to prove whatever premise they set out to investigate. I, on the other hand, have for many years maintained the idea that there is no conflict, in my mind, between the biblical representation and the scientific representation regarding the creation of the universe, including our solar system and this planet. The time that it took for that creation is not important to me, because the Bible teaches that in God's eyes 1,000 years are like a day, and a day is like 1,000 years. That symbolism should be telling us that God sees time in a way that is significantly different than our own, and that it is therefore unimportant whether it took 6 literal days as we now measure days, or 6,000 years, or 6 billion years, or 13 billion years as we now measure years, to create all that we look upon with wondrous eyes each day. God, of course, is not the only entity in the higher realms. There are countless beings who serve him tirelessly and constantly. Although we have free will, these beings, many of whom are mentioned in the Bible, may, as agents of God, whisper softly into our hearts to give us the opportunity to make the right choices. My own strongly held beliefs include the belief that God exists and that he and his higher unseen agents over great periods of time have influenced, encouraged, or inspired the direction of our evolving world and its creatures. Nevertheless, under no circumstances should those beliefs, or any other religious or spiritual beliefs, be taught in public schools. They are not for the purpose of teaching religion. Let me also say at this point that man did not evolve from apes. The story of God creating man from the dust of the earth, however, is a symbolic way of saying that our physical makeup includes and consists of those elements as shown in the periodic table of elements that exist on the planet. Our spirit, however, is in God's image. Man's existence involves other factors that will not be explained adequately in a video such as this, although I will say that God and or his agents, those who serve him, were involved, as they are with most or all things of any significance that transpire. However, humankind has been given free will and is able to exercise that free will in their lives here. I will say again, however, that the teaching of these and other religious and spiritual beliefs belong in the home, in private schools, and in the church, synagogue, mosque, or temple. Excuse me. If you choose to send your children to a private school, it's your right and prerogative to do so. As previously indicated, it should not be paid for in whole or in part by public government tax funds. Such funds for education belong to the public schools and are sorely needed there. If you're a person without religious beliefs or without belief in God, then I have no doubt that all of this must sound like mumbo-jumbo to you, or at best nonsense. Like the rest of us, you are also entitled to your beliefs. But those beliefs also do not belong in the public schools. The public schools are a place for learning secular knowledge about ourselves, our society, our history, our world, and the universe. Homes and other places of worship, as well as private schools, privately financed and set up for that purpose, are the proper places for religious teachings. Once again, I say to you, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's. I would like at this time to make a departure from the previous subject and consider another area of division, which is gun control. I look back today with fondness upon those times as a youngster when my father would take me hunting with him. As I grew older, the trips continued, sometimes with my father, sometimes with other family members, and later on with close friends, sharing time together and enjoying the resulting camaraderie. Although I find no fault with those who did not have or did not desire such experiences, I personally found a great benefit in that bonding process and in the lessons learned during those times. The time spent hunting outdoors, when approached in a patient manner, and when it includes teaching safety regarding firearms, and also teaches respect for life, even the life of a wild creature, and if all this is done with great care, can hold many benefits and worthwhile lessons for a great many youngsters if they have an interest in such things. Outings of this nature, however, should never be forced on any child who does not want them. The years have gradually brought about a great difference in my thinking about hunting. The change came slowly over an extended period of time, and a contributing factor was the feeling of regret that I often experienced when holding a small animal that had been the target of my hunt. Today I regret the killing of even a bothersome insect, and I no longer hunt unless I use a camera instead of a gun. Nevertheless, I find no fault with those families who take their children hunting during the appropriate season, as long as they teach the children proper gun safety, proper respect for living things, and as long as they use the animal for food and do not kill for the enjoyment of killing. Indiscriminate killing of any creature in that way can be a dark blot upon the soul. For those of you who would say that the taking of any life is wrong, I will remind you that even plants have life, and even those who are strict vegetarians, and those who are even more strict as vegans, must take the life of a plant to live. I am aware that there's a difference, but perhaps if you were to try to have more understanding of the other person's point of view, it will be of benefit to all concerned. Excuse me. I would not and could not be the person that I am today without all of the experiences that I have had in this life, including those times I spent hunting as a young person. However, each person must walk their own path and make their own decisions about such things. It's my opinion that youngsters who spend time hunting with their fathers or other family members, when done properly, can benefit from such experiences. For youngsters who have no interest in hunting or such outings, there are a great many other ways in which they can have worthwhile bonding experiences with family and friends in other endeavors. Among those who enjoy hunting, some of those youngsters, like me, will make the decision to move away from that part of their upbringing, while others will not, and I find no criticism for either person. I also find no fault in those who enjoy hunting as long as they hunt lawfully with great care, with respect for life and property, and without alcohol, and as long as they keep their guns unavailable to children when the guns are not in use by the adult gun owner. My father taught me a number of important things when I was young about the handling and use of guns, but the two that I considered to be the most important were these. He taught us to never accept the word of any person who hands you a gun and tells you that it isn't loaded. Always verify whether it is loaded or not as soon as it's placed in your hands. The second important fact that he impressed upon me regarding the handling and use of guns is that you should never, ever point a gun at anything unless you plan to kill it, with the obvious implication that one should never point a gun at another person, or even idly point a gun at an animal or pet. A great many of the guns that have accidentally taken the lives of a person were guns that were, quote, not loaded, unquote. Those important lessons helped me and those around me remain safe on those few occasions when guns were nearby. I believe that persons without mental or psychological disabilities who have led a law-abiding life should be able to purchase, after a waiting period of investigation, a rifle or shotgun suitable for hunting. I see no reason why anyone should object to the registration of their firearms. Nor do I see any reason why anyone would need exotic or unusual guns of any kind, unless one is a licensed collector. Certainly the average person does not need an M16, an AK-47, or a machine gun or other assault weapon for hunting or for self-defense, and those who feel that every person has a right to own such automatic weapons cause me to wonder about their judgment. Handguns are a different story altogether, however, and need to exist in a more controlled environment. I recall that my father, when he was younger, always took great pride in bringing out a pistol to show to one of his friends. My father had been taught gun safety. He taught it to his sons, and we all practiced it with great care. Sadly, that's not always the case in far too many homes today. In addition, people with good intent who occasionally buy, sell, or trade guns in their home or at gun shows often make the mistake of believing that everyone else, like themselves, is a person of good intent. Experience tells us that this is not the case. Because handguns are so easily concealed and because they are the cause of so many deaths every year, they must be under more strict regulation and should be available to purchase and register only after a thorough background check, regardless of how the gun is purchased. Large, extended ammunition clips that allow long periods of firing for any weapon must not be available to the general public from any source. One additional but very important point should be made at this time. If you are a gun owner with children, you should know this. You cannot hide your guns well enough that your children can't or won't find them. Lock them safely away. Many of those groups who are often considered to be a part of the gun lobby appear to take an approach to gun ownership which basically seems to say, hey, anything goes. This is extremely dangerous to the point of being foolhardy. Thousands of men, women, and children are killed every year by gun violence in the United States of America. This is a dark blot upon the country and upon the souls of those who refuse to change or allow others to change the laws which now allow such atrocities to occur, or at least make it easier for them to occur. Although it's not uncommon for gun enthusiasts to own several guns, the average citizen does not need an arsenal in their home, whether they are rifles, shotguns, pistols, or other weaponry. The average citizen doesn't need an automatic weapon, such as those used on the battlefields of war, and there need to be laws to prevent occurrences of both. By the same token, every citizen has the right to keep and bear arms according to our Constitution, and that right is sacred and must be maintained. We who are all God's children are not all the same. We do not enjoy or appreciate the same things in this life. We must learn not to be so critical of others who walk a path that is different from our own. I want to thank you for watching. I invite you to watch the next video in this series. Again, my sincere thanks.